Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 160. That means the 160th episode that we have done, not necessarily 160 weeks in a row. We don't have to get into all that, but nevertheless, NFC East Mixtape Volume 160, the day after Christmas. I am RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. BLG, Merry Christmas to you, your family, your friends, and everyone that you have ever walked past or been near throughout the course of your entire life.
Wow. Very inclusive of you, RJ. I appreciate it. You're clearly in the holiday spirit. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. We really got all the holidays going on. The New Year's coming up in less than a week here. So it's been a good holidays in terms of shout out to my mom for her birthday on December 25th. A very Merry Christmas and a happy birthday to her. And just a good time, spending time with family and friends, RJ. So I am doing well. I hope you are doing well as well.
Shout out and happy birthday and Merry Christmas to Mrs. G and to Mr. G, your dad in the chat. Great to see you, Mr. God, and hope all is well. There is a chat because we are live. This is the second NFC East mixtape that we have done this season. The first one was recorded, and I don't know if we're supposed to call them NFC East mixtapes. I don't know anything else beyond that. We don't know about the return of this on a regular basis. We're sorry, but I figured it was kind at least to get that out ahead of time. We are always asking and annoying the proper people. Don't worry. But Rick Bobby, CU says,
Rich Bobby.
Rich Bobby. It's always in my head. Lives rent free in my head the way the Cowboys
Look at his name. Look how it's spelled. R-I-C-H.
I know, but I said that you messed this up for me once upon a time, and I blame you. Rich Bobby said, have a good show, boys. I'll be catching up tomorrow. The other _ AJ says, what the No Mama's Way live mixtape. That's right. We are live, and we are live in a variety of places. The Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, the Blog of the Boys Twitch channel, the Blog of the Boys Facebook page, and the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel. And I do want to shout out, like we did the last episode we did, Brandon, the incredible Rachel Prevet, who helped us set up control so that I could run things live on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel as well. Obviously, you run VGN, I run VTV. That's the way our jobs work. But Rachel worked very, very, very hard to make sure that happened way back when. So shout out to her. Her legacy lives on here on the mixtape. Yeah. What else? Hi.
What else? Well, I guess we have a game to talk about this week. There's that. What a year for us to not be doing the mixtape, where the Eagles have been mostly very good. What a wasted opportunity on my end, and a great year for you to be ducking the Cowboys being bad for most of the season.
Yeah, I have gotten tagged in a number of tweets all throughout the season that are just like lamenting that the mixtape hasn't existed. And it is very convenient for me, to be quite honest with you, because I honestly think it would have been more annoying for me in the offseason because I don't know how I would have done it. I don't know what I would have said. You know what I mean? Like I would have run out of things to say about the Cowboys doing nothing. We talked about that, obviously, the last episode we did. The Cowboys are slated to visit the Eagles on Sunday, and you mentioned we have the game to talk about. But even then, in the article you wrote at Bleeding Green Nation to promote this episode, you even mentioned like this game has very little juice. I mean, this could be Kenny Pickett against Cooper Rush. Like the curse of Cowboys-Eagles quarterbacks to not play against one another lives on forever. Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz really put a kiss of death on this, all-time quarterback matchup.
Yeah, the game got moved up too. It's not just us saying that.
Yeah.
Then the powers that be are like, yeah, let's move this up to a 1:00 start. I mean, when's the last time the Eagles and Cowboys have played on 1:00? Someone said it this week. I can't remember, but it doesn't happen. Oh,
Is it was 2013. I think
no, it was the finale of the 2017 season, which was a meaningless game. The Eagles had already wrapped up the 1 seed and were playing their backups for most of that game. The Eagles lost that game 6-0.
Right. That was Dan Bailey's last game with the Dallas Cowboys, and that was the last game the Eagles lost before winning the Super Bowl, and it was to the Dallas Cowboys. So,
really meaningful. I'm sure you take a lot of pride in that.
But we've talked about this before, and I have a kind of agenda for us to get through. But just quickly, because
you always have an agenda. That is true.
That's hey, that's neither here nor there. But that being said, something we've talked a lot about over the years. We started doing the mixtape in 2021, really when Cowboys-Eagles took off to a new level, despite the fact that every time they play, seemingly the quarterback matchups have been kind of basura, like they've been gross. So if we go back to the beginning of the Dak Carson rivalry, whatever you want to call it, that first matchup it wasn't Halloween, but it was the day before, was epic. And it went to overtime and it was awesome. But then the regular season finale in 16, Dallas had clinched the 1 seed, had nothing to play for. They let Tony Romo have his final drive, and he threw a touchdown. It was awesome. And
he lost to the Eagles in his final NFL game.
He did not. I've told you this many times. Dak Prescott got the loss for that game. He started the game at quarterback. So again, if you want to lie, talk about pushing an agenda.
In the last game that Tony Romo played in the NFL, the Cowboys lost to the Eagles.
No, that's not true. They went to the playoffs.
That actually happened.
They went to the playoffs. The last game Tony Romo played in the NFL,
play
they lost
in
to the
that
Packers.
game. Did he?
Okay. If you need this, then fine. You can have it. Anyway,
you just took a victory lap over the week. 17 Eagles.
A year later,
victory.
In 2017, the first matchup, the Eagles blew the Cowboys out on the night that Jerry Jones was celebrated for going into the Hall of Fame. That was a big-time Eagles win. Again, they would go on to win the Super Bowl, and we talked about the finale that year was meaningless. So 2 meaningless games in the first 2 years of the Dak Wentz era. In 18, the first matchup was great. The Sunday night game, that was the Leighton Vander Esch, kind of a rival. Jeff Heath had a big stop on Zach Ertz, who's a big talking point this week. We'll get there in a moment. And then the second game was the overtime Amari Cooper game winner, Carson Wentz's last game of the season before Nick Foles Cyranoed him once again. And then 19 was when things really broke. In 19, the first matchup was in Dallas, and the Cowboys blew the doors off of them. That was the Dak Prescott hips game that he was first seen doing the hip exercise. And then the second one was kind of a big game that Dallas was just really flat in and didn't show up, and the Eagles went on to win the NFC East 2020. The first game was Wentz Ben DiNucci, when even Andy Dalton couldn't play. And then the second game was Andy Dalton against a rookie Jalen Hurts, and the Cowboys blew their doors off then. 21, first matchup was Nick Sirianni's Beat Dallas shirt. Did not go well for the Eagles. And then the second matchup was week 18. That was, I believe, a Saturday night that was meaningless. And Dallas made sure to get all their records for their guys. They got Zeke Elliott 1,000 yards. It was meaningless for both Dallas and Philly because Dallas had clinched the division and Philly couldn't improve upon their wildcard seeding. That was 21. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Then 22, things really change. Because 22, the Eagles have that incredible season. And the first game is Jalen and his remarkable year against Cooper Rush while Dak is hurt. Kind of close until the Eagles put it away near the end.
And Cooper Rush was undefeated at that point. Yeah.
Right. And then the second game was when Jalen was hurt with the shoulder. And it was Dak, Gardner Minshew, and it went all the way down to the wire. And the Cowboys won that. And then 23, last year we got that first game in Philly that was really good, really back and forth kind of until Philly salted it away once again at the very end. And then the second game last year, I'm already blanking on this, was
a blowout in Dallas. It was the Eagles had just lost to the 49ers, and they were I was like fully expecting them to lose that game because they were just in a terrible spot.
Exactly. That was when you had really started to kind of acknowledge that the season was really slipping away. And then this year, the first matchup was obviously in Dallas, and we had kind of flipped spots relative to the second game last year. I was like, this team's going to get smoked, and they did get smoked, and the sun and all that kind of crap. So here we are.
The Sun. Shut up about the Sun, or enough about the Sun, is it? Gabe from The Office? Whatever.
Stop talking about
the Sun.
It annoys me so much when people say that during Cowboys games because they think they're the first person to say that. They think they're the first person to suggest it. And it's
I was. So where do things stand, I guess, where the Cowboys are? Because, from the last game, what?
Do you want to do my agenda? I think it's kind of fun and topical, or we could just...
Well, I mean, I was genuinely wondering. It's a question I think it's genuinely on the mind. But I think
that you can trust that I baked
getting
that question answered into the agenda. So it's the day after Christmas, obviously. So this isn't literally accurate, but it is somewhat in that this is the 12 days of NFC East-mas, which is what we're getting to. Now, counting today, and I lamented to you and our good buddy Rob Stats-Guerra last week, people don't know how to count days. It really...
I was just having this conversation with my mom. I'm not kidding. Like an hour ago.
Was your mom on my wavelength here?
Well, it depends say what you need to say.
Well, so what I was saying to you and Stats was that people were saying the Chiefs were playing 3 games in 10 days. And that wasn't accurate because you have to count the day that a game happens. You don't just count. Right. You're not counting the difference. You're counting the full totality. So it was 3 games. And again, I'm not advocating for what Kansas City did, but I'm saying it was 3 games in 11 days. The same way Philadelphia appeared in 2 Super Bowls in 6 years, which we had an argument about, a couple of seasons ago.
Oh, no. Don't start that again.
So anyway, counting today, there are 12 days left in the regular season. It takes us all the way through the final Monday night game. Although now that I say that, I don't think there are Monday night games in week 18. So whatever. But no. I have 12 prepared topics for us that touch on all of the teams in the NFC East with a heavier lean towards Dallas and Philadelphia, if that's all right with you.
All right.
So we're not going to go quite in divisional order because this is a Cowboys-Eagles sort of thing. But we are going to start with the Eagles because they lead the NFC East at the moment, and they are slated to win the NFC East. Correct me if I'm wrong. They will win it with any win or tie or Washington loss, or I guess tie.
Yeah. Yes. The only way the Commanders can win the division if the Eagles lose out and the Commanders win out.
Gotcha. Okay, so question point day number 1. Are the Eagles doomed to collapse under Nick Sirianni and his latest antics?
What a loaded question from the jump. Famous last words. I don't think so from a standpoint. What does collapse here mean? Do I think they're not going to win the division?
Answer that then. What would be a collapse?
I think not winning the division would be a collapse. Okay. I think that would be tough because I think it would be hard for the Eagles to lose both this game against the Cowboys. I think that's possible, but in week 18, they play the Giants in Philadelphia, and the Giants can't win when they're trying to win, and they're clearly not trying to win at this point, and they're very much want to get that number 1 overall pick. So I have a feeling the Giants are going to be like maybe even resting Malik Neighbors in week 18 or whatever. It'd be very surprising to me. And Jalen Hurts might be back by then. We'll see how the concussion protocol goes. So I would be shocked if they
do you think Hurts won't play this week? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just this week.
No, I don't think he will. So, we're recording this on Thursday night. He was
streaming,
DNP,
not recording. Welcome to 2024, almost 25.
Recording and streaming because some people are listening on the replay. Jalen Hurts has not practiced this week. He's already missed 2 days. I'm guessing he's probably going to be out because even if he comes back to practice, not that this is the most important thing, but he's already missed a significant part of the preparation process. So that's, it's not nothing. And I just don't think he's going to be playing this week.
Okay. So then losing, because the Eagles, especially if they lose to Dallas, obviously, but probably not going to get the 1 seed, which means they're going to play. They're fairly firmly entrenched as the 2 seed. Right? There's just no way that Seattle could catch or LA could catch them, obviously, as the 2 seed. So they're looking at drawing the 7 seed, which might wind up being Washington. So then would a collapse be losing to Washington in the first round, being the second 2 seed ever to lose in a playoff game, or in the wild card round, given that Dallas was the first last year?
If it's a down to the wire game and there's weird stuff, kind of like this past game where weird stuff is going on, quarterback gets knocked out, and so on. It comes down to a last minute play. We can talk about that if it happens like it did to the Cowboys last year against the Packers. If it's something like that, if they absolutely get their doors beat off in their own stadium in the first round, then that is a huge time collapse to me.
So then if they were to win a playoff game, losing the divisional round, get bounced by the Vikings or the NFC North loser. That's just a failure of a season, but not a collapse. It's palatable. You can take that. You can move on as if the season was at a success, but not an overall failure.
Yeah, my expectation for this season coming into the year, my record prediction was 13-4, not incredibly far off from that. And then I expected them to win 1 playoff game, and that was kind of going to be their ceiling. So that would be kind of around expectation, and I think that's enough for Sirianni certainly to not get fired at this point.
Okay, I think that was a good answer to the first prompt. We have 12, so we kind of have to move. We can't really mosey unless you want to hit that one a little bit more.
No, let's go.
Number 2, will Mike McCarthy be back for the Cowboys, and should he? It's kind of a 2-parter. Word has, I wouldn't say picked up or been generated lately, but it is starting to feel more likely than not, in my personal estimation, that Mike McCarthy will be back. I think this might be, potentially will be true for a number of reasons. Some may garner laughs or finger pointing and just same old Cowboys, whatever. But some I think are objectively fair. I do think, and I told you this at the time, I think Mike McCarthy has done a great job. He said after they got embarrassed by the Packers last year, like I'm paraphrasing, but his comments were like, look, this was embarrassing. It was really bad. We take full responsibility, but in no way do we take responsibility for the drought that this team is in. Like, and he's frightened that it isn't Mike McCarthy's fault that Jason Garrett failed for a decade, whatever. But I do think that people fail to recognize that. I think that people place the sins of this whole kind of memedom on the Cowboys on the current people, whether it's Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott or whatever. And I think that if you evaluate Mike McCarthy's 5-year run, I think it's fair to say that he deserves a contract extension. I think on one level, it was fair to say that after the playoff loss. Obviously, the playoff loss was a massive thing. I mean, we had these conversations then. So I think the totality of his tenure suggests he should be back. I think the fact that they might not even be the most like sought after job is a reason that he might be back. Like if you were the number one candidate in the pool, would you rather have Dallas over Chicago? Would you rather have Dallas over the Giants if they become available? If presuming they have the number one pick, would you rather have Dallas over maybe even Jacksonville? Like depending on your evaluation of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, like my point is like you're risking moving on and not even potentially getting your number one guy. And your number one guy, maybe Ben Johnson, and say you don't get that guy. Maybe your number two guy could have been Bill Belichick. He's off the board. I just don't understand. I wouldn't support moving on from Mike McCarthy to go get Brian Flores or to go get Pete Carroll. Like that just feels, like a lateral move at best to me. And so that's why I think, and I don't put a ton of stock into this because there is a little bit of like, what do you expect them to say? But every single person associated with the team and on the team is not only actually speaking up in defense of Mike McCarthy, but they're walking the walk. They're playing hard for him. I mean, there's some value to that. So it all points in the direction that he will be back, and to that point should be back in my mind.
So I want to give credit here to my good friend Shil Kapadia, who I do some of the Eagles post-game recaps with on the Ringers Philly special. So if you've been wondering where you can find me podcasting about the Eagles since BGN Radio is not happening.
Everyone's totally wondering that on the Cowboys side of things. But
you can always check that. Oh, you never know. Well, sometimes if the Eagles lose, you might want to, listen to that and see how I cope.
Right.
But anyway, I bring up Shield because I remember he wrote this back on November 19th. The Cowboys were 3-7 at the time. And like the focus, I don't know if you had seen this article from him, was like, literally the headline is, could Jerry Jones decide to keep Mike McCarthy after this disaster in Dallas? And again, that was then when they were 3-7. This is before this like kind of feel good. They're 4-1 in their last 5 here. They're fighting hard for the coach kind of deal. And the premise of that, why it was proposed at the time, was because of kind of what you're touching on there, and that like who would definitely, are you sure people would like definitely want to take this job? Someone would. No one is not going to be. No one wants the job, right. But it's not everyone will want the job, and the guys you might want most might not want the job. So I absolutely think that's a factor here. But I mean, honestly, from my perspective of what I want for the Eagles, I think the Cowboys can do worse than Mike McCarthy. Absolutely. I also think they could do a lot better. So I think I am quite fine if he returns personally.
I would offer 2 more points on this discussion. And one is that if a rational person who was like making the decision over Mike McCarthy were evaluating everything, I think they would say, we probably didn't help this guy all too much. Right? Like, I think That's fair. Like whether you think Mike McCarthy is good or not, I think we can all agree that call it set up to fail, but like he had no help from his most important people. I don't put a ton of stock into the injuries thing, but I put a lot of stock into the fact that this roster, I mean, compared to the way Howie Roseman helps his head coaches, just to, be topical and use these examples here. I would also offer that they're 4-1 in their last 5. They could we don't have to move the goalpost far to say that they could be 5-0. If Amani Oruwariye doesn't touch that punt, you know what I mean? Like they could very easily be 5-0. And I think there's a world where they honestly finish above 500. Like, I don't think it's super inconsistent. So they'd have to win these last 2 games. And if you play it out with me, I don't think it's impossible to believe they beat Philadelphia, just because Philly's probably feeling like we don't have to win this game. To your point, we trust ourselves to beat the Giants. We can't really get the 1 seed at this point in time. We're pretty firmly entrenched in 2. And you may not, win on Sunday, and then the Falcons may do your dirty work for you on Sunday Night Football and beat Washington anyway. Or you just go crush New York and whatever. And say that does happen. Say Atlanta does your dirty work and beats Washington. Then Washington has nothing to play for next week. So in back-to-back weeks, you could get Philly and Washington not really with their foot on the gas, thinking to themselves, yeah, we'll let you toss your draft, capital further down the road. If you want to, go ahead and finish 9-8. To your point, even if you want to, let him whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the last point that I'll say is I would bring Mike McCarthy back mainly because what we have said many different times, if you bring him back and then you want to fire him next year, you just fire him. I mean, like, it's just money. And you love Cowboys to brag about how like you have more than anybody and you would write any check or whatever. So like you could actually just move on from him next year if it blows up in your face, which is what I said in January.
Yeah, it's not like a player contract. It's like, oh, we're tied to this. We can't get out of this. But I mean, in the Cowboys universe, there is more of probably of a thought of that than there would be for, let's say, the Eagles or these other like cash spending teams who don't create this artificial cap on themselves. So that's the only thing I would say that would be different.
Okay, so by the way, Ted E. I don't know if Teddy goes by like Teddy or if it's Ted E.
Ted E.
Exactly. But Teddy says, thanks, subscribing now to the Ringer. So good for you, BLG. Look at you gathering and garnering plugs. Okay.
I mean, I don't get anything for that, but it's just, where I'm doing
That's
some
not
guest
true.
things.
Have you guys seen BLG's house? I mean, it's built out of diamonds.
Don't have a house.
Number 3. Has this been a good season for Jalen Hurts? And does that really matter?
Has this been a good season? I don't think it's not been a bad season. They're very successful.
Earlier this season, you were pretty hard on Jalen.
No, I don't think he's
ever been. But
yeah. So I think he could play better. I think he's left. There's opportunity cost here. I don't think it's conceptually great that the offense got better when they minimized him. That doesn't mean he doesn't contribute to winning. Doesn't mean he can't go out. And he just had a really good, unfortunately, was really curious to see how he would build on that Steelers game. Because I thought that was like his best performance of the year, especially as a passer. And that's a really good, for whatever the Steelers are lacking on offense right now, that's a very good defense and one of the best passing defenses in the NFL. They're allowing like the second lowest passer rating in the league this year. So I was impressed for Jalen Hurts to come out and do that against that Steelers defense. But the thing to me, just like when he has a good day in practice, I always say like, now it's about stacking it. Like, let's see him do it. That's really what's impressive is the consistency. If you can kind of maintain that. So, yeah, Adam's exploits in the chat here says I'd give Jalen Hurts a B- year to date. I think that's fair. I think you clearly saw the value of him, like when you don't have him against the Commanders, especially in the run, like just how much the Eagles were running the ball so effectively with ease when Jalen Hurts was in the game with Saquon, and as soon as he goes out and that defense just does not respect Kenny Pickett, like they just can't run at all. So that clearly shows you the gravity he has in this offense. I don't think it's like changed what we think of him as a quarterback in terms of he's like top 10-ish. He's around there somewhere. He's not perfect and he has his limitations, but obviously when you look at the final record, like he's a very high level, like win with quarterback.
Timothy, not Timmy, or Teddy, excuse me. Timothy says BLG stop the Jalen stuff. Good A- QB. He is clutch. I don't agree with the B- grade. I don't know if you want to respond to that before I go.
Is A- like good? Like I'd say B is good.
A- is
I think
good.
A is like great.
Yeah. Like I think B is like anything in the B realm is good. But like there's no bad.
It's all arbitrary and reductive. Yeah. We're inventing stuff here, but I think he's been good. I don't think he's been great.
I think it's probably his weakest non-rookie season. I know there's not a large sample size there. But that being said, the great Bob Sturm has an expression that I love when he talks about quarterbacks. You could apply this to other positions as well, but is he a thermostat or a thermometer? A thermostat being like, does he set the temperature or does he just display the temperature, which is what a thermometer does, obviously. I think Jalen is maybe closer to a thermometer, like when things are singing, and that's okay. We act like that's a really bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy isn't like dragging a lifeless offense 100 yards. What a loser. I think there's no question that Jalen benefits from having maybe the best running back in the NFL right now.
And vice versa.
Right. Like, and I think to your point, I think Saquon is boosted by having who Jalen is as a quarterback. I think he would still be great. We saw that, he was really minimized in New York as an example, but I think if we swap Jalen and Jayden Daniels, I think that Philly's maybe even better. I think if we swapped Philly or Jalen and Dak Prescott, I think they have a potential to be better. I mean, my point is like, I think he has the like most perfect understanding of how like the suit is custom tailored for him and he wears it well, if that makes sense.
I think there's a lot of intangible stuff that especially goes on with Hertz that doesn't always like have the same value at a quarter. They're, like that is part of like his X factor and his like force of personality, to use that term. That is part of the equation. That I think with a lot of players like doesn't really matter or resonate a lot, but I think that there is something to that with him. And again, they've won a lot with him, so that's always good.
Teddy says, I know it's super late, but are you glad to be wrong about Saquon?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I was dead wrong about him. Well, I mean, I didn't think he was going to be bad. I just thought he was going to be like good and fine, which I don't think would have justified the contract if he was. If he was just like solid, average, I don't think that would have been worth it. So I think like how I was thinking about it was right in terms of like he had to be special, I think, to earn it. And I just didn't think he could be this special, and he has been. He's been amazing. Not only, and it hasn't like to me, it's not just because you put him in this system. He's played better too, from a standpoint of like so much with the Giants, so much dancing, and I hated to see that. I hated when he would just like try to force things. This year, I feel like, and part of it is having the line for sure, like just being able to trust what's in front of him. I mean, that's made a huge difference.
To answer the question, I think that Jalen has been good, but that's like the only word I would give him. I don't think he's had like a handful of great moments, but my assessment is at best he's the third best player on that offense. I'd take Saquon and AJ Brown over him easily. I don't think that's that's not like offensive. I don't mean it to be offensive, but I think it's fair.
Well, you could even put him further down if you want to say like Lane Johnson.
You could certainly argue Lane Johnson. I think obviously
it's hard. It's a weird argument, but yeah.
Yeah, you could have argued Jason Kelce certainly at one point in time. I think Devontae Smith might be stretching the argument a little bit, but I mean it's fair. I mean on some level. So I think the ultimate thing was that it doesn't matter, which is why I included that. Okay, number 4 on our 12 days of NFC East-mas. This was a great idea, and you know it. What if the Cowboys delay Micah's extension too? I have said, and I'm really bringing this up to get your thoughts on it because people like the yin and the yang. We will know by, call it St. Patrick's Day, whether or not the Cowboys have learned anything, right? Because if they wait on this, it will prove that they learned nothing, right? And to be clear, they've already learned nothing. The fact that they let Micah not get an extension done last year means that they've already not done this in the most efficient way possible. So you've already squandered that in some way, shape, or form. If the Cowboys come out in the first, I'll give them 3 weeks of the offseason before free agency, around the combine. Again, this is a fairly wide net, a lot of grace that I'm giving a team that really doesn't deserve much. But if they get the Micah extension done in that window, especially, I don't know how much I buy it, but with him saying like, I don't need to take all this, whatever I want to have, whatever, like Micah's doing and saying all the right things. And again, it may be genuine, it may be all posturing, whatever. If they get it done in that window, I will start to open the door to believe in them once again. I certainly won't walk through it, but I'll at least unlock it, right? Take the deadbolt off. But if they wait and drag this on, dude, I mean, like, what are you doing at this point? Like, there was never any justifying it before with Dak or CD. There's no justifying it now if they potentially go down that road.
I think it's, just a matter of when. I don't think he will, hit free agency or be traded or whatever. Unless he's unsigned next year, I guess, going into next season, the Cowboys just have some kind of other disaster season and they just decide to reset the timeline of the franchise or something. But barring something weird and extreme and unexpected like that, I think it's just a matter of probably getting it to the 11th hour like they did with Dak, basically, essentially.
And CD.
Yeah, I think that's how it'll play out. And I don't, all the stuff about Micah, I don't, it's just not true. Whenever a player is like, I'm going to take less, it never happens. And also, it's not just up to them. Like, they have an agent they have an agent who gets paid directly off of what money they make. And that guy or woman or whoever is absolutely pushing for it. It's just, there's more forces up. And also, it's also the pressure. It's not even just the agent. It's the pressure of the NFLPA, who is trying to work as a collective and being like, hey, we need to push for more money because that helps everyone in the long run.
I will say Micah's quote, I'm paraphrasing now, but was something like, I don't need $40 million a year, whatever, obviously talking about an AAV or from an AAV standpoint. The current going rate is 34 for Nick Bosa. He's the current leader in the clubhouse. And so, 40 wouldn't have made sense anyway.
39.9.
Even if you really did want to set the market, in the next guy gets paid type of way, 40 would not have been it. So if you're
that almost
throwing
makes it. That almost shows you what he's really thinking.
that's
Like
what
he
I'm saying. Like,
thinks he's being cheap. Yeah.
yeah, like if you're throwing out like, look, I'm gonna compromise. I don't need 40. It's like, whoa, like that was already like I'm here to help Micah get paid. To be very clear, I want every player to get paid. But like that was never gonna like you were never gonna see a jump in $6 million on an annual basis. Like that wouldn't happen in any position. Even though you're that good. I will say the weirdness that Eagles fans have with Micah, the weird obsession is
That
hilarious.
he has with them. I mean, how many games this season he's like, oh, Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, what a dumb move.
How many games does he talk about Christian McCaffrey or what? I mean, like he talks about a lot of people. Okay.
I'm very confident that Micah Parsons, if he had his druthers, would not mind playing in Philadelphia.
Question day, whatever, prompt number 5. First one relative to a non-Cowboys-Eagles team. Jayden Daniels is the first Commander Giant we are nervous about since who?
I mean, it's probably RG3, right? I mean, if you're saying Giant, I guess you could include Odell Beckham Jr. I was never really like he's great, but I was never worried about him from a personality standpoint.
You don't have to take the word nervous super literally. Like the first player that we're like, okay, damn, they got a really good player like at that position. Like,
I think it's RG3 in his rookie year. I mean, that's it's kind of a low hanging fruit comparison. Plays for the same team, quarterback, number 2 pick. But I mean, I really like Jayden Daniels. I think he's great. I was the one, if you remember, if we call back to the SB Nation NFL shows earlier this year, when at the time it was like there was a time there where it was Drake May. Everyone's like Drake May is number 2, Daniels is 3. I was like Washington should take Daniels, so I deserve credit for that. And for being
the first guy to bail on Desmond Ridder. You were the first to.
That's right, and it's really aging well. I think like the most impressive game to me from Jayden Daniels, and maybe we said this on the last one we did, I forget, was week 2 when they didn't even score a touchdown, but he just looks the composure was so apparent to me. He also got like banged up in that game. Didn't matter. Like he is just he doesn't look like a rookie out there. He looks really composed. I have a hard time believing by, I don't know how much I really know Jayden Daniels off the field, but by everything and all accounts I hear, like I would be surprised if it goes the RG3 route and kind of he gets totally full of himself. I think he is going to be a real problem for years to come. And, he could be the best quarterback in this division for a significant, like that's not off the table.
Yeah. So RG3, I think, kind of enjoyed the fame and notoriety that came with his incredible success. Obviously, but he had the injury obviously at the tail end of that rookie season, and they had I always forget, they were I think 2-7 when they rallied to come back.
It was like 3-6, I forget,
something like that. But they had this. They were just the story of the NFL. Obviously, throughout that run, they beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Like they had all this juice. They had Mike Shanahan. You know what I mean? They had all this stuff going on, and I think that Jayden has landed here at a time where the new weirdness of the Commanders has faded. You know what I mean? Like everything, they've got Dan Quinn now. He to me, when you're a little kid or a young person watching football, you're like, why don't they just take the Heisman winner? You can't for a long time understand like why isn't that guy like the best player in the NFL if he won the Heisman? I remember that with Troy Smith. I remember being like, why don't they just take Troy Smith? Like he'll be awesome. Like this should work. And Jayden is kind of like all of that manifested. You know what I mean? Like to the point even of like playing at LSU and having this big time stage and not, to your point, like not really looking like a rookie. Like he checks every box. Like I don't know how, if you're a Washington fan, you aren't just levitating constantly with all of this. Like even if they get bounced in the first round, even if it's at Philly, like who cares? Like you are already, over delivering on year 1. I think that the answer is probably Odell. Though not, I mean, just because it's more recent, but I mean, Odell was 2014. Like that was his rookie year. It's kind of crazy that it's been a decade that Washington and New York haven't had a single player that we've been like kind of touch and go about.
I'm on a little bit of I'm putting my hater hat on, and I have a Flyers hat on for the audio audience that doesn't exist. I am thinking about a Texans kind of step back, maybe if the Commanders get a little too full of themselves, if they get a little too high. I was like really looking out for that this year from the Texans because sometimes it's just like you're that it team. The expectations are so low, and like you just the bar is so low. It's so easy to go over it. And then that next year they go way high, and then it's hard all of a sudden to meet that kind of expectation.
That's what makes what the Lions have done particularly impressive. To your point,
sure, yes.
It's easy to be like the cute team that no one saw coming and that everyone's jumping on the bat. Like Cleveland was that for a little bit. Jacksonville had some of that going on. And to your point, Houston. But now it's easy to take the cheat.
And the Commanders' schedule has been really easy this year. They were last place in the division, and they're now 1-4 against teams with winning records this year. And the one win is against a team that lost their starting quarterback in the game, and it went down to the wire. So, let's see them, beat some truly good teams before we're totally fully buying into this as they've arrived as one of the NFL's lasting powers.
Mr. Gowton, not you, has spoken. Says Jayden Daniels is great. I'd trade Ertz for him. I'm sure this has.
Well, I mean, that's like a no-brainer from a contract standpoint, right? There's so much value on a rookie contract for a player who is. I just said I think Jayden Daniels could be the best quarterback in this division, for years to come. So
Teddy says, if you're a Bears fan, how did you not take Jayden? I think that's some revisionist history. I'm not ready to punt on Caleb. The same way I don't know that I'm ready to say Bryce Young could have a better career than CJ Stroud, but they're only 2 years in. You know what I mean? It's certainly not impossible at this point. Let's let Caleb get some help before we fully make this decision, and let's see how Washington handles a taste of success to that point.
And let's see how Drake May does too. That'll be pretty interesting, and McCarthy as well. That'll be really interesting. Yep.
And Bo Nix, don't forget Bo Nix.
Sure, absolutely.
Teddy, by the way, says Mitchkov. So
that is the Flyers' new prospect. That he's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
Okay, the last question prompt day of the first half. Who do we not want the Giants to take with the number 1 pick, presuming they get it?
I really haven't done enough to know. I guess I feel like I've never watched Cam Ward play. But I guess from what some of the things I read from people who respect him, I guess maybe there's just a scenario there where it goes well because it's not chaotic in drama where Shedeur Sanders maybe kind of could be with the Deion factor and some of that. I don't know. How do you feel?
I think that my answer is Shedeur because I think that the boom potential.
You don't want them to take him.
Yes, that's my answer. The boom potential, I know people. I feel the hating on Deion and Prime and Colorado. I feel we're well past that as a football society. I know that they're still people, whatever, but the proof is there. They've justified what they've done, and so I'm not here to bet against Colorado. I'm not here to bet against Coach Prime. I'm not here to bet against Travis Hunter certainly, and I'm not here to bet against Shedeur. And by that I don't mean he's a lock for the Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to be. He's going to bust. I think it could work. I really do. Everything to date has worked. You know what I mean? So the boom potential could be really awesome. And if he truly is that magnetic, right? With the market of no one has really Eli was such a boring quarterback. You know what I mean? If you take cool a cool dude like Dak or Jalen or Jayden Daniels, and you put them in the New York Giants, sort of tunnel of opportunity, it could be very, very different. I think we've seen that with Dak and the Cowboys or Jalen and the Eagles to that point. And we'll see it. We saw that with RG3 early in Washington when he got Deshaun Jackson to sign there, right? It's a different thing when you have that kind of power behind you. And I think that Shedeur with that could really be what finally turns the Giants into something legitimate. So that's my answer as of now before a lot of studying is done, obviously.
I want them to take who I do want them to take is not a quarterback. I mean, realistically, obviously, and I would love for them to take a terrible player, but if they want to take Travis Hunter, go for it. You can't keep kicking the can. And also, everyone said that this year with well, how could you take a quarterback? Because none of them are that great, and Malik Neighbors is great. Great, awesome. Look at where that ended you. I mean, it may work favorably in terms of you got the number 1 pick long run, but that did not help you at all this season, and they have to make a decision at quarterback eventually. So, and they probably will.
Okay, first question of the second half. So we're back to the same kind of order. Eagles, Cowboys, Washington, New York. Number 7, will the Eagles fire Sirianni if the playoffs go poorly? It's kind of a piggyback on the first question, but I do think it's important to have that discussion because we're sitting here talking about oh man, what if the Cowboys, move on from Mike McCarthy when it kind of feels like they won't? It could be Nick Sirianni, who's the dude who's out the door walking. And then what would you want? I want to know that answer before we potentially get to that place.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, it would have to look basically what happened to the Cowboys against the Packers last year. I think it would have to be that. They just get totally destroyed in the first round. And even then, I don't know that's 100% he gets fired. I would say it should be, but they were patient with him last year, and maybe because they had such a good year, they would do it again. And I have a hard time believing that would happen, barring a quarterback injury. But, if it comes to pass, then yeah, I think it would take something extreme, basically. Something unlikely and extreme, but could happen.
What would you want?
Who would I want?
Yeah.
If he does get fired?
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, definitely.
See, like the Eagles are a team that I think Ben Johnson would consider. I don't think the Cowboys are for obvious reasons. And like I think that of the possibilities of the vacancies now, Chicago makes the most sense. But if you're Ben Johnson and Philly becomes available, or if Cincinnati became available, which I know people had talked about, then you move, then you jump because you can work with Howie Roseman in a way that you just can't with Ryan Poles.
Well, they would pay too. Again, like
right.
Jeffrey Lurie, literally, he's one of the top spending cash owners. So yeah, he would pay for that.
While we're on the subject of Nick Sirianni, the Zach Ertz thing, where are we at? What's our feeling?
It's kind of weird because it didn't we're Thursday here and like it kind of didn't really hit the news cycle until now. Part of that's probably, Christmas holiday stuff going on, people missing it. But I don't know. To me, it's just like to me, my thing with it is that Zach Ertz caught the game-winning touchdown in the only Eagles Super Bowl in franchise history. Like maybe don't mock that guy or taunt that guy. Seemed like I saw the video. It didn't seem like this huge deal, but like why are you mocking? And also you lost, Nick. Like maybe don't mock the guy who just beat you. I know like Ertz didn't have a great game, which is Nick's point, but like I don't care. Just I don't know. It's Sirianni. It's very Sirianni. He is an unpredictable man at times, and that's just who he is.
First of all, the Zach Ertz catch kind of questionable. There was a little bit of bobbling, obviously, and then he puts
not questionable.
Like it's not really
he took 3 steps before
not really a real catch,
dove.
Therefore not really a real Super Bowl win. This is well on record. That being said, are there any Eagles fans? Because I don't do the thing that you do where you'll be like, Cowboys fans are saying, like, I don't take one Eagles opinion that I see on the internet and act like that speaks for the entire fan base. But my guess,
so nice to me.
My guess would be that there are no Eagles fans that like cape for Sirianni. Like I think
no, you're wrong. Yeah, you're wrong.
Well,
I saw a lot of that.
So
reaction.
But are they caping for him in this instance? Because this just seems like acting, Eagles fan. You know what I mean? Like I think that most Eagles fans, if you polled them, this is again a guess, would be like, yeah, I mean, he's Sirianni. Like everyone acknowledges him in that way. Like I don't think anyone like rides for this guy. I could be wrong though.
I think more people do than you would expect.
The
not unanimous
advisors on Halloween people.
Anyway, I was looking. It was weird because on Twitter, different social media platforms. By the way, Brandon Gowton on Twitter and Threads, but then Brandon Lee Gowton on Blue Sky. Find me there and find RJ on there as well. On Blue Sky, I posted the article to what we have as the link title for the Sirianni Ertz thing. And people were like bashing Sirianni, getting after him on there. But then Twitter, people were like, well, actually, it's not that big of a deal. So it was weird to kind of see the different reactions on different sites.
I do think, though, to your point, I liked the Beat Dallas shirt thing. I mean, that Sirianni did. Like, I liked leaning into the culture of your team, whatever, like trying to keep something alive or recognizing the importance that certain things have to your fans or something like that. So in that respect, like, if Terry McLaurin had caught that touchdown, or if it had been the person that you're interacting with, like, and you want to have your moment with Terry McLaurin, fine. Like it's still kind of silly and childish, but like, it's still Terry McLaurin. I do think this is fair to say on behalf of Eagles fans. I would say 1,000,000% of Eagles fans hold Zach Ertz in higher Eagles fan hierarchy than they do Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah.
Like know your place, man. Like
right.
pay your dues, type of thing. Like that's really mostly what.
That's why it's weird, and I don't know this for sure, but I would think maybe like the owner of the team is like, hey, like you know who that guy is to like the meaning of the franchise. Like maybe like don't do that.
Wow, I can't wait for the Eagles Commanders wildcard game when this is a talking point and Sirianni's asked about it and says something to make it even worse in his press conference. So, yeah,
I probably just won't address it. Probably just early because that's what he's kind of been doing.
Okay, we kind of touched on this with Ben Johnson, and these are all somewhat, we're trying to kind of go in a bit of a theme order here. Who are the candidates for Dallas if they move on from Mike McCarthy? And I brought this up to you, obviously, but because you said you think that the Cowboys can do better than Mike McCarthy. So in a realistic way, what is
but the realistic thing is
and you can't say you think they can do better if you can't think it's realistic.
I mean, but I do think if they realistically weren't as dumb, or the owner was, anyway, I think, well, who are you asking? Do I think would be better?
Yeah, if you were running the Cowboys,
I would say Ben Johnson, but I don't think that's realistic.
So okay, you can't have Ben Johnson. That's established. Then who? Who? If it's not Ben Johnson, like you get the alert, the Cowboys have hired whoever.
Why don't you give me some? Because like I haven't been like looking at this because the team I cover is actually winning, so I haven't really been looking at like the head coaching.
The team I cover has won 4 of their last 5 games.
Yeah, okay,
so why don't you
wow.
slow your roll?
Eliminated from the playoffs. Yeah.
But anyway, and the team I cover had a Simpsons game. Did you? I don't think so.
I actually like that. I honestly can't even name a lot of head coaching candidates this cycle. Like my mind has not been there. It's like Ben Johnson and who else? Like Brian Flores. I'd say Brian Flores. I like Brian Flores a lot. I think that actually could be. Does he have a Dallas connection or no?
He does not. But Stephon Gilmore, who plays for Brian Flores during, I forget, it might have been that Monday night Bengals game, the Simpsons game. Stephon Gilmore tweeted something. I'm paraphrasing again, but it was something like, man, Brian Flores could do so much with Micah. Like I thought that was kind of interesting that's like Stephon Gilmore's a quiet dude. You know what I mean? So for him to tweet that out was pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean Brian Flores,
Kellen Moore. But I don't think Kellen's gonna get a job. I don't think his stock has risen that high. Well, unless they win the Super Bowl or something.
We'll get there in a moment. But Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel is a name, although Ohio State is kind of a domino yet to fall. We'll see how that ultimately goes. Pete Carroll has thrown his name back into the ring. That's what I'm saying. Like none of these.
I like Vrabel. I would do that.
It just feels like the same. Like you're just bringing in a dude to for the social team to capture video of like yelling at guys to feel better about. Like it just. I mean, cool.
I think he'd make him a tougher team. The Titans were always tough. Like that was always a trademark of them when Vrabel was there.
Well, we might as well move on to the next one that I had prepared, and it was, will Kellen Moore get a head coach job this cycle? Because Kellen fits the Cowboys part of the discussion that we're having, and this is a relevant question for the Eagles. Kellen was obviously around the Cowboys forever. There would be a little bit of like, like Brand finally getting to sit on the throne a little bit if Kellen got the Cowboys head coaching job. What with all the time he spent with the organization, he is kind of Jason Garrett 2.0 in that he played for the team and the Joneses love him and all that kind of stuff. He is of the mold, like the young, bright offensive mind guru that Ben Johnson and Joe Brady are or whatever. His year in Los Angeles still exists and gets conveniently forgotten by anybody that brings him up. I do think he'll get a job. I really do. If it's not Dallas, I mean, I could see him getting like the Saints job or something, but I think he'll get one, but I just don't think it'll be the Cowboys.
At this, I don't think he will
I'm
unless.
Sorry, but like it seems ridiculous to me to bring him in to be Dak Prescott's head coach when Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush both beat him out. Like it was ridiculous that he was their offensive coordinator, let alone the idea of him being their head coach.
Well, and then they fire him because he's like the problem, and they give all the power to McCarthy. So yeah, I think it'd be kind of a little bit of a weird, especially again when it hasn't been like the Eagles offense is just so on fire. It wasn't like at a level of Steichen. Like Kellen Moore's stock, I don't think is like where Shane Steichen's stock was. And again, it's easy for me to say now because Steichen had the benefit of making to the Super Bowl. And if Kellen Moore does get it there, that will certainly be a different factor. But I don't think right now, I don't think the current track he's on, I'm not seeing that.
Maybe. I do think it's interesting that he's interviewed so many times and hasn't gotten one. Like that is in some way a bit of a red flag. But I don't know. But okay, are we ready to move on? We have 3 more. Okay, and then we can kind of honorable mention it up if you would like. Number 10. This isn't really a question, as more of it is a statement, but Dak Prescott is about to be one of the longer tenured quarterbacks in the NFC East. I don't know if you realize it, but so next year
probably in the NFL, right?
Well, he's currently the longest tenured starting quarterback with his team. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers plays for the Jets, but Dak's been starting for his team longer than anybody in the NFL, and that will obviously continue. But it's been a while since we've had a quarterback. Next year will be Dak's 10th year in the NFL, and obviously he's playing. And so it's been a minute since we've had Tony Romo, obviously lasted that long. Eli, Donovan McNabb. That's kind of it, like as far as the 21st century. I do think that's kind of interesting relative to like the division as a whole.
Who was the last Commanders quarterback to last that long? We don't know that, right?
I think the longest run, not that he lasted this long, was Jason Campbell. Is that correct?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, probably maybe, but it wasn't that long. Yeah, it wasn't 10 years.
But like, when you look,
I like Jason Campbell. I thought he was kind of like solid.
He was underrated. So if I look at their Pro Football Reference page, Washington, they have had a different top passer 3 years in a row. So this year it's Jayden Daniels. Last year Sam Howell, and the 2 years before that was Taylor Heineke. The year before that was Alex Smith. The year before that was Case Keenum. I kind of forgot that happened on some level. Oh, I guess Kirk. Kirk was kind of the last.
Not 10 though. Yeah.
No, but he was there, the starter for 4 years. Jason Campbell led Washington in passing 3 years in a row. The last person to lead them in passing at least 5 years, because Cousins only did it 4 years in a row. At least 5 years in a row was Mark Rippon. And
there you go.
Did it 5 years in a row from 1989 through 1993.
But yeah, I mean, in theory, if the Giants, get their pick right, this whole division could be locked in for a little at quarterback for a little bit here.
Yeah, that's true. Well, until apparently there's somebody in Eagles land saying that the Eagles should draft a Jalen Hurts quarterback similar to be their backup. The comment section has said this several times tonight.
Yeah, so, I mean that makes sense because
maybe Jalen won't last. So
I never know.
Okay, so last two, number 11. Just how exactly did Washington get it right?
Again, part of it is like low expectation. It was the lowest of expectations from a dumpster fire organization. Getting any owner that is not Dan Snyder is automatically an upgrade, even if it's Josh Harris, who, suspect and a fraud. But, I think part of it is...
Sixers won on Christmas. How can you be so mad?
That was a big win. And, yeah, it was. No, I was happy to see them beat the Celtics. The quarterback is a big deal. I think that's the biggest thing. Smart front office, what it seems like, the Commanders hired Adam Peters from the 49ers, who obviously have made a bunch of good personnel moves. One of the better front offices, probably. Have had a lot of success, certainly, the team, as stats would attest to. So they did that. They had a lot of resources. They had a lot of cap space. They obviously had good draft capital from being so bad last year. So I think kind of the condition and the worst schedule, fourth place schedule, all the conditions were ripe really for them to take advantage of that. And to their credit, they have. I think the quarterback is for real. Again, there's some luck there in terms of if the Bears took him, could be a very different story if it's Cliff and his boy Caleb Williams in Washington. So, it's some luck, it's some skill, but I think they're on a good trajectory, mostly because of Jayden Daniels above else.
I wonder if Jayden boosts Cliff to another head coaching job. I think that's definitely possible.
In Chicago, right? Yeah, that's something to watch out for.
Dallas would be so horrible. Just again, you hear people throw out names and you just roll your eyes. Is that H2O we're working on?
Yeah.
Wow. Are you someone who puts ice in their Nalgene?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, good for you.
No.
Anyway, I think the answer that separates them, because a lot of what you said is common sense. There aren't a lot of teams that have gone in year one of the rookie quarterback contract window. We see a lot of times, I think Houston's a great example. They're like, oh, CJ Stroud's for real. Let's trade for Stephon Diggs and let's, spend all this money, whatever. It's well, why wait? Why burn that first year? The plan is for him to be awesome. You should act as if he's awesome now. And they did that ahead of this season. And some of that, to your point, and the point was the culture reset and the cap space and, just kind of acting like adults finally. But they spent in free agency. That helps. All those players are valuable role players for them, obviously. And they got lucky. They got Howie Roseman to bite on Jahan Dotson, right? They had all these things kind of work in their favor. So it's impressive. I'm mad that I'm not more annoyed by it. You know what I'm saying? When Philly's good, it's really annoying. But this doesn't highly annoy. I hate how much I'm happy for their fans. You know what I mean? They've just been that bad for so long.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where things go for them. You would think they're gonna, hit it hard, because I think that's kind of with the Lattimore trade. Lattimore trade is what you're saying in terms of the after realizing, right. He is good now. Let's really do it. But they were at such a point too where they just had to spend because they had so much money, and I don't think, if I'm remembering, this wasn't a huge spenders free agency. It seemed like there was it was more of a buyer's market of a free agency, I thought. Certainly at different positions, certainly running back, namely one of them. They didn't sign one of those, but Eckler. But other than that, I just think, it shows you how sounding obvious, but if you can hit on all your moves, yeah, it tends to be pretty good.
I also think they got the culture setting coach at the right time. Like that can land at the wrong time. Like I think Ron Rivera was a great culture setter, but they needed more than that when he got there. And that's why they never really got it together under him. I do think he helped them survive in an important way, the final, years of Dan Snyder. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think it was always stupid how he was like, Antonio Gibson's going to be our Christian McCaffrey or whatever. But I
do wonder how it looks like, if they lose Cliff, because, that was a big talking point. Certainly when the Eagles lost Shane Steichen, that's not the only time, a quarterback loses the offensive coordinator. I still think Daniel's going to be good, to be clear, but that will be like, that'll be a big question from year 1 to year 2.
Topic, question, data point, whatever, number 12, and then you can come up with whatever ones you want to close us out or to start the closeout. But can the Giants do anything to save themselves? We talked about who we didn't want to see them draft with the number 1 overall pick, but like this is deeper than they just need the quarterback. My personal opinion, and we like the Bears are the only team that get crapped on for this about the never lining up of GM, coach, quarterback, whatever.
Yep.
If you're the Giants, you got to do it. You got to get rid of Brian Dable and Joe Shane now. You got to wipe the slate. Like it's a little teeny tiny bit unfair to Brian Dable and to Joe Shane, but for the good of your organization, you cannot keep them, draft Shedeur, have it be terrible next year, and then fire the 2 of them, and then have Shedeur entering year 2 and looking like Caleb. I mean, look, there's 7 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Bears have 3 points. Like you can't put Shedeur or Cam Ward through their rookie season. You just can't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that was exactly what I was going to say. You have to clean the slate. Why? What has Joe Shane done that makes you want to keep him? What was like an interesting move that he has
Brian
made?
Burns trade. That's the
okay.
Well,
yeah, but part of that was like the Panthers, like messing up too. Like that's the other side of it. And okay, great, but then that's one thing. And also look at how he let Xavier McKinney walk out the door. What's he like lead the NFL in interceptions? He's like a 25-year-old safety too. Who is the safety that went to Julian Love, who went to the Seahawks? Like another good player.
Julian
out the
Love,
door.
who loved Nick Sirianni.
Saquon Barkley, obviously, like just like
the Saquon thing, I will never give them grief for. Like that made sense. For
they
them.
They should have traded him. They should have traded him earlier.
Unfortunate that it blew up in their face, but
they could have traded him earlier.
Saquon was not Joe Shane's fault. Saquon was
he was in part,
not in totality. I mean,
they could have traded him earlier. He didn't have to wait till his contract expired.
Dave Gettleman had his hands all over that. I agree with you to some extent. And you're right.
He didn't make the most of it.
That's a fair point. But I mean, that was a difficult situation to uncover. But to the point, you have to wipe the slate clean. You can't. You cannot. And they're obviously a package deal, like coming together from Buffalo. Like you can't. That would be the worst thing is you just fire one of them. Like you've got to get rid of them both. I think, which is again unfortunate, but it's the reality.
Also, I think you need that from the selling standpoint too for the fans. You know what I mean? It's like just new quarterback, new GM, new coach. We're doing this.
Number one pick. Yeah,
you got to get fans excited. You have to sell something, and I think selling a fresh start. I know the Giants have had a lot of fresh starts in these past years, but doing that with a new quarterback is a big deal. That's the thing they've been missing all this time. Like they have not had the quarterback in a long time.
Well, and we talked about like selling yourself to like Ben Johnson. If you're the Cowboys, as a franchise, you will never be more enticing than when you have the number one pick. Right, like to whatever head coach or GM that you're trying to lure in, you won't like if you go at this in year 1 and what if you draft Shedeur or Cam Ward and they stink? You know what I mean? Now you're trying to like you're in the position that Chicago's in where you're like, well, Caleb is still good. You know what I mean? Remember how you thought of it. You know what I mean? Like you do not want that. So you want to be able to sell yourself to a lot of people.
All right, honorable mention time.
This is all you because I prepared the 12 days thing. I mean, if you want to, by the way, honorable mention me for coming up with that and executing it flawlessly. That would be cool.
Well, you just did it for yourself. You did such a good job of congratulating yourself that I will let you handle that. Looking for some of the questions that I wanted to ask. My bigger picture question from earlier was just like, what does the feel like? Because they are 4-1 in their last 5. Great. But like I've seen, I keep tabs on Blogging the Boys because I link to you and all the other NFC team blogs in our daily link roundup. And it seems like correct me if I'm wrong. The energy is like, yeah, it's not really like ideal that we're ruining the draft position here, but like winning is fun. So you can't just totally take that for granted either. And I don't think that's unfair, by the way. It's too like very like too cruel and like inhuman to be like winning doesn't matter at all. It's all about the draft pick. That's just not fandom. That's not a reality. Like it's not like how emotions and feelings work. So I guess like what's the temperature check on the Cowboys entering this game, and also like the game itself? Like, do you want the Cowboys to win this game? Like, how are you feeling?
I think so. To answer the temperature thing, like my read of the fan base first, I think that you have some people who are like, this is stupid. Like winning is hurting everything. You know, like you always have people that represent like every idea or opinion or whatever. What I have said about this little streak, you can talk about like good for the culture, things like that. I don't know if you remember what you saw, but when the Cowboys got their doors blown off of them by the Ravens, CD, who today actually it was announced the Cowboys are shutting him down for the season with a shoulder injury. I don't think it's a coincidence that that's happening after they were. I think that was the plan all along when they became mathematically eliminated, but they got eliminated too close to kickoff last week, so they just kind of ran with the game plan. That being said, back to my point, CD's body language around the Baltimore loss was really bad. I mean, like kind of complaining on the sideline. That's what it looked like. And I think people were like, man, this is not a good look. You know what I mean? Like this is the guy that they just paid whatever. So for CD, like CD's had this incredible transformation over the season alone, like out there, like killing himself, you know what I mean? Like through all the pain and everything like that, like with the team eliminated without Dak, like it with no real threats opposite of him. Like it has been really good for CD. And for Micah has been king of like, we're not going to tank. We're going to try very hard. I'm going to do my best once he got back from injury. And I will say he has completely walked that walk. Like he has been awesome since coming back, and the defense has been awesome. And so that the two most visible and soon I would imagine most highly paid non-quarterbacks on the team are talking the talk and walking the walk. I think that's valuable for Maris Liufau and DeMarvion Overshone and Jake Ferguson or whoever. And so there is a lot of value in that, whether it's for Mike McCarthy's Cowboys next year or somebody else. So I think that people are willing to parse or able to parse through it all and see that. I think that everybody wants it both ways and would love to have, a better draft pick on top of everything. But I think that it's hard to say you won't remember forever the way Deron Bland ripped that ball away from Rachaad White on Sunday night. Like that was really fun and really cool. And I mean, since Thanksgiving, they've lost one game. The holidays were fun. You know what I mean? Like that's part of why we do all this. And so, again, you want it both ways, but I forgot the second half of your question. I think people are.
Well, how are you feeling about this game specifically too? And do you want the Cowboys to win it?
I'm bummed because of what you and I have always said, that these Cowboys-Eagles games, particularly the ones in Philadelphia, lack so much juice. I do think I wrote an article about this. It's not out yet. You talked about how this game got flexed back. So, well, yeah, however you want to put it. This is kind of a 3 games in 10 days thing. But anyway, so last year the Cowboys of their 18 games, if you count the playoffs, they were they had a number 1 broadcast crew on 17 of them, or for 17 of them. Like think about it. They're the Cowboys. They're going to get that much attention. I understand that. But this season alone, they've already had a non-number 1 crew 4 times. And so last year they had Fox's top crew, which at the time had Greg Olsen, not Tom Brady, obviously. They had that crew 9 times. Okay. The last time they had that crew this year was Thanksgiving, but it's not really a choice, right? Like, every year Fox and CBS just flip and flop between Dallas and Detroit. The last time Fox chose to send Burkhardt, Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi to a Cowboys game was week 6, was the Cowboys and Lions game. They've had 4 chances since then and have sent the number 2 crew, including to this week's game against Philadelphia. So I do think that, like, relative to this game, I do think that people have this, it's not apathy, but I do think that people have developed a callous to the Cowboys at large. And I think that that's been hardened over this year. And I think that's where we're at with this game on Sunday. It's like, you're going to play, it's Christmas break for a lot of people. It's the holidays. You still got family over, you got leftovers, and you're going to enjoy it. And it's on at noon. Cool. You know what I mean? It'll be over in time to watch Packers Vikings and then, Falcons Commanders. But it just kind of is what it is, and they've won too much now to where losing would really help their draft position. So, and beating Philly even wouldn't like hurt the Eagles, you know what I mean? So you can't really find a lot of satisfaction in that. So it's a very complicated thing.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking for the line for the game because it was around like 9.5.
It's moved,
I think,
which is representative of the idea that Jalen won't play, I would think.
Right. Well, actually, I think it's moved. So I moved, I think, a couple times where like I saw it down to like 6.5.
Yeah.
And then I think that was also before. It was like after the Pickett news, but then before some of the CD Lamb news. And then since CD is gone, it's gone down back to -7. Eagles at home.
How much would it annoy you to lose this week?
It'd be pretty annoying.
Like in a standard lose to Dallas way, or just in general?
No, just in So here's what my kind of focus is on this week is because like obviously it looks like Jalen Hurts isn't going to play. Question is, who should and who will start for the Eagles at quarterback? Kenny Pickett got hurt in the Commanders game, was able to finish the game, but he's dealing with a ribs injury. He was listed as limited on Wednesday when the Eagles didn't practice on Christmas. He was upgraded to full on Thursday. He said he's going to be able to play. He said like he's fine enough. He's clearly wearing like extra protection on his ribs. He admitted he's going to have to deal with it. The Eagles also signed a practice squad quarterback, and we'll see how they handle that. But my sense there would be, especially if they actually bring him up for the game, would be like, okay, you're doing that in part because you're not like feeling totally confident in Kenny Pickett's ribs. And that's annoying to me because like, I think there's already a case to be made that Tanner McKee, the Eagles' third string quarterback, who in fairness hasn't played before, but like has looked better in training camp practices that I've watched, and a lot of other, the beat reporters would agree with that. And even in the limited preseason action we saw from both of those guys as well, like I'm just more intrigued by Tanner McKee than Kenny Pickett. So I think that's a conversation to me already. There should be a debate when they're both healthy. If one of the guys isn't healthy, it shouldn't even be a conversation. Like, what are we doing here? So I would be pretty frustrated, like if Kenny Pickett goes out there and he stinks, and like in part is because he's not healthy. It's like, what are we doing? Like that just seems really dumb to me. So if they lost in that kind of fashion where like they're just not being smart about it, then I think that would be pretty frustrating. Yeah. And also if the defense like stinks, that would be pretty alarming, I would say, given no CD and given how much they were able to shut down Cooper Rush last time, and the fact that the defense, while also creating 5 takeaways, struggled and allowed 22 points in the fourth quarter last week. So that would be concerning. That wouldn't just be annoying. That'd be concerning.
I think a loss too, from a Philly perspective, would probably be annoying in the sense of like, now we have to be serious about next week. You know what I mean? Like now we have to like, whatever. And like it's a difficult thing the only team who's proven to be like really good at it obviously is Kansas City, but it's so difficult to balance like this game is meaningless or kind of meaningful but kind of meaningless, and this one's a little bit more meaningful but also potentially meaningless. So I think obviously it goes without saying the worst possible day is Philly loses and Washington wins, because then you got to deal with the like, man, if the Eagles lose, like it has like the Giants, whatever, Bob, like it just becomes an annoying thing. And if the Eagles win, you can manufacture your own bye next week and all that stuff. So yeah, but if you I don't know if we talked about this in the last episode. Did I tell you I watched the Vince McMahon documentary?
Well, just real quick on that point there, like the Eagles could have like mathematically clinched the division as soon as week 15. And for them to like not do it until week 18 is like, come on, like just that it's like a whole month, like just this delayed gratification there. I don't know if I think you may have mentioned it because you were saying you were like, you're not a wrestling guy. Yeah. It kind of seems funny to me because that's like a bit of a surprising blind spot for you as someone into pop culture. But yeah.
Yeah. So I bring up the wrestling thing because if you believe, so it was really unfortunate. I thought it was crazy that the NFL didn't flex the Cowboys out of Sunday Night Football last week because it was possible that they would be mathematically eliminated, and they were. So it's kind of crazy that they, kind of put this Washington-Atlanta. I recognize that Atlanta has some serious stakes, and you get the rookie like Michael Penix Jr., Jayden Daniels thing. But if Philly wins, you really lose some juice, in this game, and it becomes just Atlanta. And so I bring up the wrestling thing to say, like, if you believe the NFL is scripted, then, then this is a Dallas beats Philly and Washington has a chance to, narrow the gap all the more on Sunday Night Football. So
right.
You never know.
Yeah, I hope not. But yes, that would be how that would shape up. Also, we have a comment here from Ted E, who asked me, have we heard anything about Jordan Davis? He's not on the injury report, so he's good to go.
So you have and haven't heard anything, because you haven't heard that he's on the injury report. So the fact
I have heard that he is not injured.
Wow. Do we have anything else before we do songs?
I don't think so.
So for those of you who are new or who forgot, every week of the NFC East Mixtape, BLG and I add a song to our Apple Music playlist. Mr. Gowton, again, not you, but I don't think I've ever called you that, but Mr. Gowton says, so great seeing you guys together. It is great. Mr. Gowton, hope you're doing well. I hope Rachel's doing well. Again, do want to shout her out again. Want to shout out Steven Serta again, and want to shout out Rob Stats Greer again. Did you see Stats injured his shoulder? Did you see this?
I did. Yeah, I was concerned.
Yeah, he texted me about something, but I think it was a shoulder impingement. Does that sound like a real thing?
I did see that word.
Yeah, and he said he was at the time in constant agony. But then like a day later, he had like a Christmas photo and he looked really handsome. So it's like, are you lying in the photo, or were you lying when you told me that it was agonizing? So
shout out to Jamal and Jamal Forrest and Ed Valentine from Big Blue View, and right. Jamal from Hogs Haven. If you're not also checking out, obviously check out Bleeding Your Nation, Eagles, Blogging the Boys, Cowboys, but also make sure you're checking out Hogs Haven and Big Blue View as well.
Also, shout out to, did you watch Survivor, the finale finally yet?
I did.
Shout out to Rachel. In my opinion, we didn't really talk about this season, but the best winner of the new era. I'll say that right now.
I haven't gone back and mentally done that. So maybe it was it's a very good winner.
Michael Wright had a comment that we won't put on the screen because it's a family show, Michael. But you said you love RJ, so I appreciate that. Teddy asked if you beat Tears of Kingdom, and what did you think of the game? I think that's a you question.
Zelda. Okay, yeah. I did. Yeah. I liked it. I've kind of been, if you want to let me be an old man here, get kids off my lawn for a second here. These open world games are just a little too much for me. When it's just every game that's become the standard, it's there's infinite choices. Okay, but then I end up not wanting to do anything because you can just do everything. It doesn't mean anything. I think I want to see some more structure. I want to go back to Ocarina of Time and play a game that has temples that you play in order and structure. But I did like Tears of the Kingdom. I thought it was worth playing, and then the boss fight was certainly better than Breath of the Wild, the first of the Zelda Switch games. But yeah, it's
always been amazing to me how you and I are truly the Batman and Joker, truly the same person but different people. Because I feel identically about these games are kind of overwhelming. In fact, very recently, I would say in the last 2 weeks, I've picked up some more. I don't know if these qualify as RPGs, but basically non-sports games for me. I play sports games and then I play the occasional
what?
Well, I picked up Hogwarts Legacy. I hadn't finished it.
That counts. I think. Yeah.
So I hadn't played it since I think my save file was March of 2023. So my goal is to finish it. But to your point, it's I can fly the broom, I can run around the castle, I can go underground, I can go to Hogsmeade. There's too many choices. You know what I'm saying? There's too many side quests. I on my list in 2025 among my resolutions is to knock out some games that I've been neglecting for far too long. Hogwarts Legacy, Spider-Man 2.
Gotta play it.
Star Wars Fallen Order, I think was the first one.
Sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Those are all things. Your dad said that Rachel was awesome, so agrees that she was among the better players. Michael said, sad the look ahead wasn't around this season when the birds are rolling and the Cowboys and Niners were collapsing. A missed opportunity for BLG to clown on RJ and Stats. Long live the Icebox is really how I feel about that.
I do miss the look ahead for sure.
Are you ready for songs? Because I'm ready to go. If you
yeah.
So we've talked about this a lot on different shows in the past, but something that Brandon and I are a part of, and BLG can correct me if I'm wrong, is the Writers Guild Association. Is that correct? Is that what it's called? I don't know how that happened.
As a proud member who knows everything that's going on, what is it called?
Again, I'm 100% serious here, to our audience, and BLG can corroborate me here. I believe that we are allowed to vote on movies and television shows for not the Oscars, but awards. We're that's our
I mean, I think obviously it's only part of the equation too.
Right. But my point is we can have a say, and so because of that, we are sent. We've said this many times. We are sent screeners of as it's part of being part of the guild. And so it used to be really cool. I know we've said this. We used to get physical gifts. I always bring up, we got my wife watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and one year we got it was a purse, and it was
also got that. Yeah, it was this pink, bright pink purse.
Yeah, exactly. Now
there were sticky notes in there and some notebooks and stickers. It was cool.
We still get the occasional physical DVD, and sometimes sometimes they send scripts, which is really interesting. Like you know that we get this. Just you know, two sports guys, but whatever. But now, thanks to technology, I would say we get emails a lot with access codes, and it's just like go to this website, put your code in, you can watch whatever. Don't show your code to anybody. Blah blah blah. BLGs can be found on his Twitter at Brandon Gowton if you need them. That being said,
don't say that. You're gonna get me in trouble.
That being said, my wife and I have not been to a movie theater to see a movie since March of 2019.
I remember this.
When we saw when we saw Avengers,
Yep.
because since then COVID happened, we had a baby, and now like he's 3 years old, and it's just impossible. So I love this. I love that we get the screeners, and we can, you know, you just got to be a little bit patient. And last week, I think it was a week ago today, got the email for Wicked. It came in. I was so pumped. I was so excited to finally get a chance to watch it. So we watched it on Friday night. Absolutely delivered. It was everything I wanted. I've seen the show. It was perfect. That being said, the song that I'm putting on the playlist is "What Is This Feeling" from the movie soundtrack, not the Broadway soundtrack. So in some ways, you know, I'm Batman, you're the Joker. I think that makes me Glinda the Good and you Alphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West.
I do want to see that. I have not yet, but it is among my plans. You know.
But you should have the code. I got the code, so you should have the code. So.
See, I was telling you last time. I don't know why I'm not getting those codes. I have to figure that out. I've gotten the physical copies, but
if you get an email because there's different studios, and you get an email for like one movie at one studio, and you put it in, it unlocks all the movies that studio has. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we'll see. My song, good pick by you. My song here is by this band that I came across a couple weeks ago.
Simple Plan.
They
Fall Out Boy.
Are a math rock band, which I don't know if you know what that is, but I like it. The band itself is called Covet, 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 and the song is the first track from their album Efflores, it's called. The track is called Shibuya. It's Shibuya, which I think is like a city or something in Japan. It's just like this really cool guitar where they're not just like strumming it like a typical guitar. It's like finger tapping it and kind of plucking it. It's just like it's just fun. It has a nice, cool sound to it. There used to be a band called Chan, which had a similar style. I saw them one time in person. They were really cool.
How do we spell this? I'm having difficulties finding it.
Covet, Covet. Covet.
Okay, and
this is the name of the band, and then the band is called Shibuya, Shibuya, Shibuya. It's cool, especially if you want to listen to some instrumental music, you know, just no lyrics. You're just feeling like putting some instrumental stuff on, maybe pop it on in the background. I think it'll brighten up your day. You'll like it. It's cool. There's also some cool videos of the guitarist who plays it on YouTube, and they're pretty cool.
You and I are maybe the only two people that have Apple Music and not Spotify. I can't find this. If I search Covet now,
I'm looking at it right now. You go to Covet, you type Covet, and then you go to their
San
album.
Holo?
Yes, yeah, not Han Solo, San Holo.
I think that's why you like this.
That has nothing to do with it. It's a cool song.
Okay, so do you agree that that you're Alphaba because she's green?
I have not seen it yet, so I don't know. Your favorite color is green, so
it used to be.
That's funny. It used to be.
Wow. Anything else you want to say? Because
shout out to Holden Elizabeth who got me this for my Christmas gift. It's a big Jack Skellington Squishmallow. He's huge, but he is very comfortable. So shout out to E&H.
How is Paul?
He's doing good.
Risking it all?
He's risk it all Paul on Instagram, the world's most famous greyhound. Still big, still doing good. Yeah. I saw Elizabeth on Christmas Day because not too far away from where we live here in Pennsylvania, RJ, is the the town called Washington Crossing, where, true to name, George Washington crossed the Delaware River on Christmas Day, and that was like this huge turning point. I don't know if you know that, in the American Revolutionary War. So they do a reenactment each year on Christmas of that, and I'd always known about it, but it's those things like you just never do when they're by you, just because you just don't do that. But finally did this year, so did that, and it was fun. It was cool.
Is that where you got the Squishmallow?
I didn't like get it like as they were selling it, but yes, I did see Elizabeth there, and she gave me my gift as I ran into her there. Yes,
Interesting. I'm happy to hear that Elizabeth's doing well. I'm also happy to hear that Holden's doing well, given that he spends all of his time obsessing over anything and everything that I do.
sure.
Also, since we last spoke, the Phillies lost and did not win the World Series.
That's right.
So
tough one. Yeah, tough to lose to the Mets too, especially. That was brutal. I was there for game 2, where my guy Nick Castellanos, my favorite player on the team, came up with the walk-off hit. So that was pretty electric. And shout out to my friend Matt, who hooked me up with tickets to the playoff games. So I had fun going this season, and it stunk how it ended. We'll see if they can do it again this year. And if not, I mean, the Flyers got a bright future. And if not, the Eagles might make the Super Bowl. Who knows? And then there's the Sixers, who are big win over the Celtics. So, who knows?
Okay, last one here. Because I don't know when we'll get to do this again. We continue to. This
Wow,
is a
that
true
sounds
thing.
so dramatic.
No, but it is true. Like BLG and I continue to fight this fight. I would say daily.
Well, how about this? We'll do it in the offseason at some point.
That's true. So between now and then, though, in case we don't do another, if it can't be the Eagles, who do you want to win the Super Bowl? Right? And if it can't be the Eagles, who do you want to be in the Super Bowl, and who do you want to win it? And then I can go first if you want.
Wait, so what are the questions?
So you're assuming a non-Eagles representative
Yep.
in the Super Bowl. So who do you want in it, and who do you want to win it?
Okay, yeah, you go first.
I don't hate Kansas City the way anybody else does, but I am a little bit bored of it. I want to see it. Something different. That's all. I want to see Lamar or Josh Allen in the Super Bowl. It's really what it comes down to. Also, Pete Sweeney was really feeling himself. He was sending me some text messages on Christmas Day, and he said "Merry Chiefsmas." That was how the text started. So I'm gonna say, I'm really torn. I'm good with Buffalo or Baltimore, but I think I want to see Lamar get it just a bit more. So I'll say Baltimore. You can miss me on this Detroit stuff. I want nothing to do with it. I think that I'm going to go. The game I want to see is Baltimore Green Bay, and I want the Ravens to win.
That'd be a good game. I think entertainment value would be a good game.
Interesting uniform matchup, not conventional, but a little, kind of interesting to look at.
Do we know? We got to look up which team is the home team in the Super Bowl this year.
Last
year it was
it's the NFC.
Wasn't it the 49ers?
Team. It's the home
last year.
The NFC is the home team because the Eagles wore green 2 years ago.
True. Okay, yeah, good call. I'm gonna say, in terms of like what I think would be the most, if I could pick 2 teams for the sake of, I think it would be a good game, and I think I could really be fine with either one winning. Like the feel-good Super Bowl.
That's the answer we're looking for. Like things that where you can enjoy it. You have no beef. Like I'd have a little bit of beef with Green Bay winning, but not a ton.
I would say, I think the feel-good Super Bowl for a lot of people, you're not included, but for a lot of people, I would say the majority of people would be like, neither of these 2 teams have, experienced a lot of success. It'd be the Bills and the Lions. Like Bills, Lions, one of those fan bases is getting a win. You already feel good. Like, oh, okay, one of these 2 fan bases is going to be happy. That's pretty cool.
Life-changing thing for one of those 2 fan bases. That's a good point.
And my friend Alex is a big Lions fan, so I'd be happy for him. I don't know any Bills fans.
Jeremy Reisman, interesting.
As well. Oh yeah, Jeremy too. Jeremy's also
or Matt Warren for
there
Buffalo.
Too.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yes, Matt in there as well. But I think I'm gonna go with, in terms of like, selfishly, I'm going to say the Chiefs, because what have I been saying since I saw Patrick Mahomes post-game interview after the Chiefs beat the 49ers, I've just felt resigned, and I still feel this way. I felt this way the entire season. I have not at any point wavered from this. I don't care how bad the Chiefs might look and they might almost lose. I don't care. They're going to win. It's inevitable. Like, it's just going to happen. Like, I'm been resigned to this since February. I'm not kidding. Like, I truly believe that's going to happen. They're going to go for the 3-peat. It's going to. Why would you doubt them? Why would you think?
I'm not doubting.
They're going to, not you. Not you specifically. The royal you. Like, I just see people being like, "Oh, they're not that good." Point differential. Normally, I would agree. Yes.
Right.
But like, this team won the Super Bowl the past 2 years, and also, when has Mahomes ever like not come through in the big spot? And also, even if his regular season numbers are like, look at his playoff numbers. They're amazing. Like, no one stops him. It just doesn't happen. The only person who did, basically, was Joe Burrow's Bengals, and looks like they're probably not going to be a factor.
The Bucks beat them in a Super Bowl, to be
sure, with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady's no longer around in terms of playing. So I just don't think anyone's stopping Mahomes. I don't. And they're getting better. They're peaking. They're like finally getting out of that.
Like
And
to be clear, like I'm not betting against Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not betting on any other AFC team until the Chiefs. Just I'm gonna lose a bet on the Chiefs or something. Is my stance on this.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on some level too. I don't always feel this way, but it would be kind of cool to see a team three-peat, to see it happen. You know what I mean? Like just to see what that would be like. I would just be curious.
I'm not one of those. I get what you're saying. That's just not how I think, but I understand what you're saying.
Would it make you feel even 1% less bad about the Eagles losing their Super Bowl to the Chiefs?
No, because the Eagles did not do everything they could have, like in terms of Sirianni, like the game management. They did not go down swinging the way they could have.
Well, plus there was the pass interference at the end that was a properly called penalty. So
sure. The bigger missed call from that game is the Devontae Smith overturn on the sideline, where it's a clear like you have to stick with the ruling on the field kind of play, and they somehow overturned that, which is insane. Even though they had the offense, that was insane.
Interesting. Even though Devontae Smith had a clear fumble in the NFC Championship game, that the Eagles ran up and fraudulently covered up with their next.
I mean that Kyle Shanahan's dumb for not throwing his challenge flag. No one runs out of challenge flags anymore. Why would you not throw it? And also that probably in today's NFL that probably actually I don't even know if that would get to the challenge flag. It might just be the assist, the replay assist there. But I mean that's totally on the 49ers for not or Shanahan specifically not throwing the challenge flag.
Last question for me, and then you can ask a question or we can leave. Are you rooting against Penn State? Like, do you?
I don't care. That's such a high leverage play. The Devontae thing. I just can't get over why you wouldn't throw a challenge flag there. It's such a high leverage thing. Like, how would you? What are you saving your challenge flag for? That's an insane thing.
I don't disagree with you.
Anyway, no, I don't. I honestly don't care about Penn. I just don't care.
We aren't.
If they win, like cool. Like I don't care. I don't feel anything towards them.
Will you tweet we aren't if they lose at any point?
People get really mad about that. So maybe if I want to make people mad, but some people get too mad about that, and it's like I'm just making a dumb joke on Twitter. Like you don't need to send me death threats or anything here.
Yeah, it's okay. Like it'll be fine. I mean,
it's really not even that good of a joke to get mad about.
Plus, the greatest Nittany Lions are Cowboys anyway. So
Saquon.
Not Saquon. Is he? I guess he might be the greatest. That's a good point. But yeah,
is he better? Is the guy in the MVP conversation better than Micah Parsons right now? Maybe
the greatest defensive. Although Navarro Bowman was a Penn State Lion, and so
he was.
Yeah. So I mean, hey,
interested to see where maybe the Cowboys will draft. What's the name? Abdul Carter.
He won't make it.
Yeah.
Anything else before we go?
Thanks for rocking with us, even though it was a weird 2024 in terms of, for me personally, a lot of the weird things, and losing the podcast, one among them. I appreciate everyone being really excited and supportive when RJ, we just pop out of nowhere and are like, oh, we're doing a mixtape, and everyone's like, oh, we really appreciate that. That's cool that people still care, because sometimes it feels like no one does. Not because the listeners, you're not supportive enough or you're not cool, just because we're not doing it like we used to. And you don't get that same kind of feel, or it kind of just feels like, something that fade away with time. Sometimes it just feels like it gets forgotten and it didn't exist at all. So I'm very appreciative. And yeah, I mean, all of it, basically, most of it is not in our control. So on our end, we're trying to do the best we can with what we can. In this time, it is, I think, quite frankly, unacceptable, to us that it has taken this long and we don't have better answers for you. I feel really bad that we don't have that, but it's not our choice. And I think, thankfully, a lot of people get that and understand that it's not just hey, we're just not doing it. Because we are trying to spite the listeners or whatever. It's obviously not that. It's just that it's the part of the problem is, quite frankly, there's no really good explanation. That's the problem. If we had a good explanation, I'd give it to you. There isn't really a good one, and that's what's really frustrating. So, not trying to end on a negative note. Hopefully, again, my hope. I keep hope, and I am trying to remain optimistic that we will figure this out at some point. I don't feel like it'll go on like this forever, but we will see.
Fingers crossed. The mixtape has been, I would say, the most fun podcast I've ever been a part of. I don't want to speak for Brandon. We've had a lot of fun doing a lot of different things. And I think the creativity we've had, not just between Brandon and I, but the trust that the audience has always given us has allowed us to the courage and the, feelings, the bravery, whatever you want to call it, to go out and try different things. Like we've had, we talked about Survivor. We had Rick Devens on. I mean, we've done some really wild, weird things. We've done some conventional things, like our all NFC East teams and whatnot. And this is, the best division in football. It's the NFC Beast, a name that we coined and that nobody else had ever thought of. And when they're not good, we also coined the NFC Least.
Right.
And so it's the only division that features 4 Super Bowl winners, and also the only division that features a horrible quarterback that will be in the Hall of Fame in about a month, in Eli Manning. So,
almost a career 500 quarter, like one win above career 500. That's a real thing. That's insane.
I know it is. I'm not.
Or wait,
I'm
no,
not,
is he 500? No, he's 500, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's 500 on the dot.
He almost had a losing record. There was like that one more start that he played in the last season. Like
I don't know if you've ever done a show with our friends at New York Giants Daily, but I did their show before the Thanksgiving game that Dallas played, and I brought up that at no point was Eli ever the best quarterback in the division, and they were kind of really mad for a second, and then I was like, when was he the best quarterback in the division? Like, and they were really kind of flummoxed. I mean, it was either Donovan McNabb or Tony Romo, you know what I mean? And then obviously Dak Prescott, and just
he had what here? 1, 2, 3, 4,
this is the right
or 1.
And done. This is the right
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of his last 7 seasons were losing seasons. Like that's my whole thing with that always is like the bad counts too. Like that you can't just like cherry pick the good. If you suck for an extended period of time, that should be factored into the equation.
I also will be particularly upset because I think we both not understand, but we both can accept that he's gonna get in. Like we both know that in our brains. But if you're telling us that Terrell Owens is not a first ballot Hall of Famer and that Eli Manning is, then we have a right to call you stupid. I mean, you know what I mean? Then your process is really dumb if that's what it ultimately yields. So
9 of his 16 years were losing seasons or 500 seasons. So less than half of his career, he had winning seasons. Somehow this is a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Also, the 2 Super Bowl runs that they went on, which were objectively amazing, featured because the second one didn't feature a playoff win over Dallas, but the second
one was the most fugazi Super Bowl ever.
But the second one, it wasn't a playoff win over Dallas, but it was a Week 17 win in game. It was effectively a playoff game. And my point is, if you're gonna, like smush the Cowboys teams of all time and be like the Cowboys are losers, they're lame, whatever, and your playoff runs are partly built off of them, then what are you? Like, I think that about the 49ers, like as of late. Like the 49ers love to be like, oh, we're always in the NFC Championship. Well, you're beating the Cowboys, who you say suck. So like, is it really impressive to beat the Cowboys? Because that's what Eli did. So yeah.
His pass rating for his career is 84.1.
Yikes.
Like what are like the NFL leaders in pass rating this season? Like is that like the dead last? Will that rank all like dead last of all like the passers just like this season alone? I'm looking it up, and the answer is hard to find because this table isn't sorting for me. I don't know. The point is, Eli Manning is bad, and we should probably just wrap this up anyway.
All right, BLG, as we leave, tell us the best thing you ate around Christmas. Not necessarily on Christmas Day, but the best thing you ate in celebration of the time of year.
Well, it was on Christmas Day. I want to give a big shout out here to a place in Philly and Port Richmond called Chev's. It's Polish. It's Czerw, and really good kielbasa as well. But the pierogies there were, I thought, pretty incredible. So if you're in the Philly area ever, go to Chev's in Port Richmond and get yourself some of those pierogies because they were awesome. What about you?
I smoked I had never done this before. I smoked a leg of lamb, and it was pretty divine, if I'm being honest. So,
not a huge lamb guy, but to each their own.
CD lamb. It wasn't him. It was,
Is that why he's been shut down for the season?
Now we have to go. Say Fugazi. Say pierogi.
Fugazi.
Say lamb.
Hey, Fugazi. He's Fugazi.